Demand and supply agriculture. Agricultural products are commodities. A commodity is a good which could be swapped with any other good of the same type without noticeable difference. For example, if you could exchange wheat for some different type of wheat of the same type. It doesn't matter if that wheat is from a different harvest or was grown in a different place. The goods are similar enough to each other that it doesn't matter which one is used. Other examples of commodities include oil, sugar, and tea. Supply of agricultural products can be affected by disease and weather, both of which can be unpredictable. If supply is reduced, then the price mechanism will force the price up. The opposite happens when there's an increased level of supply, e.g. when weather conditions are favourable, there's a bumper crop. So we'll look at these two situations now. Decreased supply due to flooding. The supply curve is forced to shift to the left as flooding reduces the size of the crop. Price increases to P1 and quantity falls to Q1. So, consequently, that becomes our market equilibrium. It should also be pointed out, another way to explain this is that was my equilibrium before at A, and because of the poor supply, because of the flooding, A to B represents excess demand. So A to B is excess demand, and because of the excess demand, the price gets bid up to C. Hence why we have price P1. So a contraction in demand from A to C, extension in supply from B to C, all coming about because of the shift left in the demand curve because of flooding. Increased supply due to a bumper crop. The supply curve, when there's a bumper crop, will shift to the right from S to S1. Now, obviously we can see that the price goes down from PE to P1 and QE will go from Q. Okay, so we can see at a price of PE, the original equilibrium, we mark that A, and B, we can see that there is excess supply in the market. Because of the excess supply in the market, there will be an extension in demand because of the cheaper prices from A to C, increasing the consumer surplus, of course, that being the increase in the consumer surplus. There will also be a contraction in demand, contraction in supply, contraction in supply from B to C, because of the lower price means that less profit will be made. This means we're back in equilibrium at C. You've noticed in the diagrams that the products have inelastic supply and demand curves. That's very important with agriculture. So, agricultural products on the whole have inelastic price elasticities of demand because food is a necessity, and supply because, for example, it's difficult to store agricultural products and there is a long growing period. Price instability can be a feature of markets for agricultural products because the demands for these products is fairly price inelastic. This means that even a small increase or decrease in the quantity supplied can have a large impact on price. Price instability has several factors. The unpredictability in the supply of agricultural products can reduce or prevent investment in agriculture due to the uncertainties about returns on any investment. Countries dependent on exporting agricultural products can have periods of low income and high unemployment. For example, a country will receive export revenue after crops are harvested, but other times of the year the revenue will be much less. Also, workers employed to harvest the crop are only needed when it's ready to be harvested. After this period, they're not needed and will be made redundant. Obviously, this is seasonal unemployment. Buying food is a major part of people's monthly expenditure. When food prices rise, people become worse off. This has more of an impact on people with low or fixed incomes. Higher food prices can also have a negative impact on the economy as a whole. Increased prices leave less income to spend on other goods, which can lead to a recession. Changes in income have a little impact on demand for agricultural products. Demand for agricultural products is generally income inelastic, meaning that regardless of whether income goes up or goes down, these products are still demanded. For example, caught up with something else then. Let's return to the video. So demand for agricultural goods is generally income inelastic. For example, as your income changes, your demand for food products isn't likely to change that much. You still need to buy enough food to survive. Increase in income can lead to changes in the quality of agricultural products demanded. For example, consumers might switch to steak from mince, or from concentrated fruit juice to freshly squeezed juices. Long-run prices for agricultural products are declining. Factors that affect the long-run supply of agricultural products include technological change, the supply of good quality land, and changes to the climate, for example, caused by global warming. For example, technological improvements may lead to an increase in the supply of corn. So think of a basic micro diagram there. Supply shifting to the right from S1 to S2. I haven't drawn it on the screen, but you're capable of doing that. So repeat one more time. Technological improvements may lead to an increase in the supply of corn, as there'll be an increase in the efficiency of corn production. This will cause the supply curve once again to shift to the right, resulting to a fall in price. Factors that affect the long-run demand curve for agricultural products include changing incomes and consumer preferences. So long-run supply, technological change, climate change. Long-run demand, changes in income, and changes in consumer preferences. For example, the demand for meat may fall in the long run because of an increase in the number of people choosing a vegetarian or vegan diet. Demand would shift to the left for meat, and the price of meat would fall. Buffer stocks also affect the price of agricultural products. Buffer stocks involve a government or its agency setting a minimum and maximum price for a product, for example wheat. The aim of buffer stocks is to stabilise market prices for particular products and prevent shortages. If the price mechanism causes the price of the product to go outside of the agreed range, i.e. too high or too low, then the government will buy or sell the product until the price returns to the agreed range. So I'll show you an example of that now. So on my diagram here, I'm going to have a buffer stock system, and I'm going to say that's here we are going to have the maximum price, and here we're going to have the minimum price. So we do supply inelastic. So because we've said that agricultural goods are supply inelastic, and I've got demand inelastic. Now, let's say that there's suddenly a poor harvest. Now, if there's a poor harvest, you can see that here the equilibrium price is beyond the maximum price. If I put P1 here, the maximum is above the maximum price. So what we're going to do to explain it, I'll start here again, same logic here, slight shift in the supply curve to the right. You can see that there is excess supply at the minimum price level. Okay, this is because the price here is P1. Okay, so to get back to the minimum price at present we cannot do it because there is this excess supply, or caused because of this low price at P1. So how we're going to resolve the excess supply is simply by the government buying up or an organisation buying up this quantity of excess demand. So I'll just shade that in an orange. So they will buy it, whether it be corn or wheat or whatever it might be. And that will mean that the new price, and I'll just show you in green, is back at the very least at the minimum price. Hopefully it might be slightly further to the right of that and be here. Okay, so that would give us a price here, and maybe P2 or P3, whatever you want to call it, can be found within the boundaries of the minimum and maximum. I'll explain this in more detail in a buffer stock diagram video. Buffer stocks of a product are stored and sold if the price rises above the maximum allowed, as we've just shown. This will increase the supply and shift the supply curve to the right. We've just shown that. The downside of buffer stock is that they can be difficult to manage effectively and can be expensive. Again, I'll cover this in a separate buffer stock video diagram.